Welcome back to my channel. My name is Liz, and when I was still in high school, I got pregnant. A lot of people never really talked about it. Not a lot of people post that much about teenage pregnancy and, tips and advice on how to overcome the adversities and real life challenges that happens whenever you are pregnant. I see a lot of people posting about, being a teen mom and how awesome it is giving live birth, things like that. But in actuality, we need a little bit more about the emotions that you actually face and experience when you are pregnant. This is the video for it. So just a little bit of background. I come from a very traditional household. I'm African, in which teenage pregnancy is very, very unacceptable. Getting pregnant out of wedlock is unacceptable, and so is teenage pregnancy. You could possibly get disowned. You can be shunned by the entire community. There are even countries out there that would literally publicly humiliate a person for being pregnant at a young age. So here in America, it still followed me, in which the community that I was in carried that same mindset. So a little bit about my background story. I got pregnant when I was 17. I went to an academic school in which there weren't really any sports, but they did have a lot of clubs. And during one summer, the summer of my junior year, we had to go to a university to move into a dormitory and spend 2 weeks there attending classes and whatnot. And I think it was our second or third day there that, I don't know, I just fell off. I missed my period, my stomach was hurt, and I felt nauseous all the time. Every morning I felt nauseous. It was ridiculous, and I was just very grossed out by everything around me. And something just told me to just take a pregnancy test. Of course, I didn't have a ride because, I was 17. No one was gonna take me to go get a pregnancy test at the convenience store, and they literally had everything we needed at the campus. So one of my friends actually walked to a convenience store and got me a pregnancy test and brought it back to me. There were 2 or 3 sticks in that I took, and they all came back positive. I was devastated. My best friend Izzy was there. She was in one of the stalls with me, and it was just very, very scary. I remember feeling like my entire world was coming crashing down. I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do with my life? I also remember feeling like, what am I gonna tell my parents? I know my ex and his family members, they were gonna be ecstatic about it, but I already knew, coming from a family where teenage pregnancy, it's the end of the world essentially, because it's all about shame. It's all about the upkeep of the family name. I knew I was going to bring dishonor and shame into my family. I really had to sit down and really weigh out the pros and the cons and evaluate myself and my ability to take care of a child. Since abortion wasn't an option, I'm like, okay, so either I keep it or I adopt or give her up for adoption. And I personally believe that the only way that I was going to give her for adoption was if I literally did not have the mental, the physical, or social capacity to take care of her, in which I had all 3. So really, there was no reason for me to get rid of her. And on top of that, she's my baby. I want to raise her. I don't want somebody else to be raising my child. So I decided at that point that I was going to keep the baby. I did actually let her dad know at that time that I was pregnant, in which he was ecstatic. So was his entire family. But of course, that's a story for another day. His mom told me that she was actually happy that I was pregnant at the freaking age of 17, but story for another day. I was glad that they were at least excited and I at least had them in my corner. But majority of the fear still kind of encircled around how my parents and my family were gonna react. So I did not tell anyone actually. But when I got back from that 2-week-long summer course that we went to, I had my ex's mom take me to a pregnancy place where, I don't know if you guys actually have seen those signs where it says pregnant, in need of help, those billboard posters. Well, anyhow, she took me to one of those in which they gave me an actual pregnancy test to verify whether or not I was pregnant, and they verified that I was. And they also gave me information as to where to go to get an ultrasound that was a non-for-profit organization that helps pregnant women. So I scheduled an appointment, and I also had my ex's mom take me to the ultrasound place to go see what the baby looks like. I was happy. I was happy when I did see the ultrasound. The lady that did the ultrasound, she told me about an organization called the Gabriel Project that helps women in my very similar situation go through or get through situations like this. And she told me to contact them, that they were going to be of great help and a great resource to me. And I told her, okay. I reached out to the Gabriel's Project people and met up with two ladies. One was Karen and one was Gabby, which I'm still friends with Gabby till this day. I love her. They really helped me, and I am very grateful for them. Like, things they do for people, it's amazing. It is truly amazing. They were with me at the darkest time of my needs, and I'm just very, very grateful and happy for them. I kind of went along with life, just went along with my daily life and didn't really say anything about my pregnancy, but was always living on my belly. I took pictures as my belly was growing, just like from a very flat stomach to like kind of like a little bump where my pelvic region was. But I just kept pushing, kept life going. I didn't tell anyone else besides my best friend, my ex's family, and also the Gabriel Project's people. Those were the people that knew life was okay, but I kept going with this huge cloud over my shoulder. Like, I knew the ball was going to drop at any point in time. So I was always living in fear, and I didn't like that. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. There was this point in time where my little sister and we went to visit my oldest sister, and she pointed out that I looked sickly, like very sickly. And sure enough, I actually lost about 25 pounds around that time, like in the time span of knowing, finding out that I was pregnant to the time that I did see my sister. I had lost 25 pounds, of course, because I wasn't really talking to anyone. I just felt I was scared, and I don't know. I just felt like I couldn't really be myself. I was scared to eat. I didn't have an appetite. I was nauseous, but thankfully throughout my pregnancy, I never threw up. I didn't really have any major pregnancy symptoms. I am very, very grateful for all I ever experienced was just the nausea early in the mornings and just smells that I used to love, I started to hate at that time. Anyway, she did point out that I looked very sickly, and I told her, I'm fine. And she was like, but at the same time, like, you look big down here. Like, what's going on? It just didn't make any sense to her. I told her that I was fine, and I didn't know what she was talking about, just kind of played it off until I got home. I got home and my mom was like, you're pregnant. I'm like, what? No. She was like, we're gonna go get a pregnancy test. And at that point, I was like, there's no point in even, there's no reason why I need to lie anymore. It's only a matter of time before they found out, either now or when I was actually in labor. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll take the pregnancy test. Knowing that I was already pregnant, I let her go to the store, let her get the pregnancy test. And I just came out of the bathroom after I took the pregnancy test, and I said, here, Mom. And I just recalled that her face, she looked like she saw a ghost, and she looked so disappointed, so sad, like just a mix of emotions I could vividly see her experiencing in that particular moment. And it hurt my heart because I was the one causing her that pain, and I felt really, really bad about it. And then she was like, she asked me like if the father was the person that I was with at that time, and I told her yes. She asked me how far along I was. I told her I didn't know. She was like, have you been eating? I told her yes. She was like, you're lying. I'm like, yeah, I haven't really been eating. She just broke down crying. Like, after the mix of emotions, the multiple questions that she threw at me, she just bursted out into tears and was like, what did I do to deserve this? Haven't we given you enough? And I just felt so heartbroken that I was the one causing her that pain. Word got out to the rest of my siblings and my dad, and it was when my dad found out that like I felt like my world turned upside down, because I love my dad. I love him so much, and I never ever wanted to disappoint him, but he was so disappointed, and I could tell it in his face, and it hurt my heart. We lived in the same house. His bedroom was like directly in front of my room, so every single morning that I would see him, like, he wouldn't talk to me. Some of my sisters didn't really talk to me either. They were all very disappointed in me. And as people started noticing the changes in my body, and there's no denying at that point that I was pregnant, I noticed that I started to lose friends at school. People weren't talking to me, but then they were talking about me, if you know what I mean. Like, you just know the rumors were going around, and there were people that were bold enough to actually come up to me and ask me, hey, like, are you pregnant? Like, yeah, like, at that point, I'm like, whatever. But I just went on with life. I just faced the consequences. I knew what my actions were, and I just had to face the consequences. But the part where it got really bad was like childhood friends that I had from church, even church itself, like people there were turning their backs on me. I used to be a Sunday school teacher, but I mean, I do get it that they don't want the kids to have a bad example in their lives. But at that time I was turned away from church. The head of the church actually even advised my parents to tell me to get an abortion. Just nonchalantly, well, why don't you have her get an abortion? I'm like, what the fuck? Whatever. I've actually forgiven them ever since. But in my head at that time, I thought it was absolutely absurd for them to even mention the word abortion or even encourage that sort of deed. I just stopped talking. I wasn't talking to anyone anymore. I just didn't really care anymore. Though I was still doing well in school, I still went to school every day. I did what I was supposed to do, but I wasn't really talking to anyone anymore. And during this time too, my daughter's dad was kind of in and out. Like he just became so scarce, him and his family. So I really felt alone. I got to the point where I just kind of wanted to end it all. But at the same time, I just started thinking to myself, what am I doing? You know, what am I doing if I actually did end it all? Like, I didn't want to be responsible for not giving the child a chance. During that time that I was like, struggling with myself as to what I wanted to do, whether I wanted to stay with my parents, run away, or just end it all. My dad walked in and he saw everything that was on the floor, things that kind of indicated that I wanted to just end it all. And he broke down crying, like a grown man just breaking down crying and asking me what I wanted to do with everything that was on the floor. And I couldn't say anything. I told him that I was tired. I told him that I didn't want to hurt him or hurt the family anymore. I told him that I was such a shame. I just felt so sad and I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. And he told me I should not, like absolutely not. And he apologized for the way that he's treated me over the past couple of weeks and not being there for me. He told me that he was going to be there for me. That was essentially the turning point of my story. My dad actually went above and beyond after that day because we did sit down and have a conversation. And he held me like a little baby as I was crying to him about how sorry I was that I brought shame and dishonor to the family, how sorry I was that I didn't listen, how sorry I was that how I went on my own path and ruined my life, in which it's not ruined. Like looking back now, it was all for the best. But anywho, I poured out my heart to him, told him that I felt alone, told him that I just needed him and I needed help and I was gonna change and I couldn't do it alone. And he held me and told me how much he loved me, how sorry he was for not sticking up for me, for not being there for me, and how he was gonna make sure that I got through it and how he was also gonna be there for my child. I was very grateful with my family there with me, accepting me and choosing to go against everyone else's opinion, like an African family at that, with how traditional we are in our culture. Like, whew, that's a lot. I'm very grateful that they did do that. From there on, things started to be on the upward trajectory. I found another church to go to. Some of my friends came around. Some that I didn't even tell about. They were so mad at me and told me that they still would have been there for me even if everyone told them not to be in my life, and kept doing what I was supposed to do. My dad was literally bringing me food. Everything was getting better and I was just happy that I was. Oh, and one thing that I actually forgot to say, as soon as I found out that I was pregnant, I actually decided that I wasn't gonna be with my daughter's dad anymore because I knew he wasn't good for me. I knew that deep down inside that he was not good for me. Even during the entire relationship, I knew we weren't gonna last. I knew he wasn't good for me, but I just stayed. I just stayed like an idiot. But whatever, story for another day. From then on up until birth, some people started to come around a little bit more. I had my baby, she was beautiful. I graduated from high school. I had a huge naming ceremony for my daughter in which literally everyone plus more came to attend. It was like filled, it was packed up in there, and I had like a year and a half's worth of baby diapers. I literally didn't have to buy diapers until my baby was like 17 or 18 months or so. It was just amazing. I stayed with my parents and moved out about 2 years ago. Got my nursing degree. I graduated from college, got a really good job. Now I'm engaged. And looking back, just During that time frame of pregnancy, I really thought, you know, my life was gonna end. I thought everything was coming to an end. Well, at that point, I couldn't really see it tomorrow. I couldn't see any positive aspect of anything. I felt so bad. I felt lonely. I felt depressed. Just so many emotions during that time. All of those feelings are normal. But one thing that I was always grateful for was for the child that was growing in my belly. I would always love on my belly, love on my daughter as she was still growing in my stomach, and I would sing songs to her. I still would try to keep a positive outlook on things, although there were times where it just got really bad and I couldn't really keep that positive outlook. Looking back now, I'm grateful that everything happened the way it did. I'm still growing, but it did shape me to become who I am today, in which I'm very grateful for. I'm grateful for my family, and that was the time that I actually realized how important it was to have a supportive family, the way that my family was supportive towards me. You'll get through it. You will get through it. Even in the midst of uncertainty or you feeling alone, you will get through it. Having a baby is not the end of the world. It's not the end of your life. It doesn't mean your life is gonna be shit or whatever. Doesn't mean you're not gonna be anything. It's really just a road bump, but the reward is just so much greater, because the baby that is born is just an added joy to you, and the person that you become during that time is just, it's gonna be far beyond your wildest imagination how much growth in a positive way that you do grow after having a baby. At least for me. I don't know about how other people do it, but you'll get through it. You'll get through it. Having a child is a blessing, and I want you to know that everything will be okay. Some way, somehow, everything will be okay. Don't let other people get to you. Surround yourself with people that are actually gonna like uplift you. And during that time, you'll definitely find out who's in your corner and who's not. And you know, sometimes it's better that way. So my encouragement to you, if you are going through a time of loneliness, a time of no return, a time of uncertainty, if your pregnancy hasn't really been one that you've loved or one that you've enjoyed because of fear or because of being shunned or shame or guilt or whatever it is that is going on internally, just know that it's okay. Love that baby the way that they deserve to be loved, because really, you did the deed. It's unfortunate that some people actually do get to that point where it wasn't even their fault that they're pregnant, but in a lot of cases, you did the deed. Just take your responsibilities. Some way, somehow, everything will just be okay. It's just that in the moment that you are going through everything, it just feels like it's the end of the world. But in reality, everything will be okay. You'll make it through. You're gonna have a beautiful baby that's gonna love you and say, "Mom, mom, 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 mom," and it's just gonna be so happy to see you and love on you, and it's all gonna be worth it. So hang in there. Hang in there. You got this.